I'm Kelsey Zeiser. I'm a senior editor at Light Reading, and we're here at the Network X event in Paris. And I'm joined by Sylwia Kechiche with Ookla. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Kelsey.
Yeah, how's the event going for you so far? Is there anything that you're, we were talking offline about your interest in hearing, other analysts and things going on. Any topics this week that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, for sure. And I think I just did the panel moderation looking the fiber access networks. Mm-hmm. So we had the panelists from City Fiber, from Hyperoptic, and gentleman from ECTA, who's the Association of Alternative Operators in Europe, just talking what the future of how fiber holds. And it's quite interesting conversation because obviously, I don't know how it's in the US, but in Europe, there's lots of pressure on rolling out fiber, simply because we have the Gigabit society goals. So by 2030, all the households should have access to at least a gigabit speed. So that's very important. We actually looked at that from the perspective of whether or not households or speed test users, as we want to call them, actually have access to 1 gigabit. And looking at data, for instance, in France, almost 40% of households have a subscription to 1 gigabit. Mm-hmm. But what we see from our data, they're not necessarily getting the speeds that they're supposed to. So we're seeing just over 1% of our users, speed test users, actually having gigabit speeds. So that's kind of the expectation versus reality, and that's the conversation we're having today at the panel. Also, what needs to happen? Do we need more consolidation in the market? Obviously, City Fiber being a proponent of that, or do we need a little bit more open access networking in that regard?
Okay. Is pricing constraints for consumers, does that contribute at all to their ability to access the speeds, or is it more an infrastructure problem?
It's actually both, because obviously fiber to the premise, you need to be able to roll out fiber, and across Europe at least, we still have a lot of copper. So copper switch off is happening, but not as fast as some would like to see it. Access to infrastructure, and for sure, is an issue in terms of digging up and laying down fiber. Not everywhere you can put the fiber on the poles. That's one of the challenges as well. But on the other hand, at least in the UK, a lot of customers think they're already getting fiber. So why would you want to buy a fiber subscription if you're getting fiber? Yeah. So there's a bit of education going in there. But we also see across quite a lot of countries the take-up rate. So the proportion of those households that have actual fiber available to them, so the pass by fiber versus those that subscribe, they're still quite low. And that depends very much on whether somebody just thinks that whatever subscription they have, it's good enough for them. Mm-hmm. So if it's good enough, why would you want to upgrade? Why would you want to change providers? Some of it is just that. And some others, they don't see good use cases for having faster connectivity.
Right. Yeah, definitely sounds like that education piece is really important for consumers. And you all also had an article yesterday, I believe, on a new report. Can you give us a little taste of what that was about?
Sure. So again, we look at what do we see in terms of the reality check on the Gigabit society goals. So again, across Europe, we have this lofty goals in terms of Gigabit being rolled out. But we see a really mixed bag. So for instance, Spain, France, Nordic countries, Romania, of all countries, that did very well when it comes to fiber rollout. So they're doing very well, really good speeds. But we still have this big disconnect between the download and upload. So in the true matter, when you talk about fiber, you should really see symmetrical speeds. So the same up as down, and latency. So latency is not there yet quite often. So that's one of the findings, that we still have a big gap between the upload and download, and that depends on the connectivity. If it's fiber, you see more symmetrical. If it's not fiber, DSL, cable, and so on, that's going to be quite a gap. So that's one takeaway. And another one, there are some markets that are falling behind. For instance, Germany. There's lots of things at play in Germany, for instance. But you really see the tale of two Europes, where some are rolling out faster and they're really driving the uptake versus other, the lagging a little bit.
Yeah, I like that idea, the tale of two Europes.
Yeah, that's the case with everything in Europe.
Yeah. Anything else that you're noticing that's really impacting 4G and 5G performance or broadband deployments?
Yeah, so actually, again, going back to what I've heard, what we've seen at the show, so we had lots of interesting conversations already. And one thing that comes out as we start discussing 6G, obviously 5G advanced, 6G going towards that, there's lots of questions around 5G and whether the 5G that we get, especially the non-standalone, is the true 5G. So everybody's saying this is not the true 5G. It should never be called 5G. It's really, really very different to what we expected. So there's a bit of conversation in terms of what are the benefits, whether there's a killer app when it comes to 5G. With 4G, you've seen, you are able to video stream, browse, you've had all these, streaming abilities that you couldn't before. So that was the benefit that 4G brought for sure. With 5G, a little bit different angle to that. So in the US, again, you have fixed wireless access that's being deemed as one of the key use cases. And across quite a lot of world, 5G-based fixed wireless access is being seen as complementary to fiber. So kind of bringing back fiber-like performance. You couldn't do it the same with 4G for multiple different reasons, spectrum being one. But really, you're seeing a lot of focus on that. And you had Nokia also launching new devices related to fixed wireless access as well.
Mm-hmm. And you all also recently released some additional data, and Mike Dano with Light Reading wrote about how the 5G median download speeds for T-Mobile, for example, in the U.S. are getting really close to Cox's fixed broadband speeds. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's happening there, and is that echoing into European countries as well?
So again, it's a mixed bag in the verse where we see if you have DSL or coax copper, DOCSIS speeds, they're not going to be able to really give you this symmetrical upload download, but also they're not going to be in the gigabits ability in as such. Versus with 5G and 5G fixed wireless access or 5G as a mobile technology, you can really go above 200, 300, 400 megabits per second. It very much depends on multiple things. The spectrum that's in use. So I think we've talked before about spectrum.
Right.
If you have C-band, you can go anywhere above 100 megabits per second for sure. When you have the lower band, that's going to be less than 100 megabits per second. But what we really see is mobile networks playing a really important role in terms of being able to bring the connectivity to the very remote areas.
Okay.
And that's what we see being very important at the moment. And from what we also see from our data is a lot of use of fixed wireless access. So that's for sure very interesting.
Okay. And in that vein of bringing access to more rural or, historically underserved areas, what are your thoughts on some of the best mixes of technology to serve those areas? And, there's going to be some discussions around the digital divide this week. So just wanted to hear your thoughts on how are we moving the needle forward?
It's a very interesting question. I think particularly because when we look at the connectivity through the connectivity for all lens, it's about moving away from just technology for technology's sake. It's about use cases. So what is the best technology for the given use case? So in some cases, it's going to be fixed wireless access. In some other cases, it's going to be satellite. So it is really the narrative is moving towards more of a complementary technology versus either or. It is going to be, at the end of the day, very important debate because CapEx spend is reduced. Big operators don't have infinite amount of money to be able to do it. On the other hand, you see really operators trying to reallocate some of the spend. So trying to switch off the legacy networks, moving away from the legacy networks for the purpose of, sustainability as well. So one of the big challenges when it comes to network is cost, energy costs, right? So this is what we really see is that there's discussion about what is the most effective use of networks, and we're going to see more and more AI and machine learning being used just to drive the best technology for whatever use case you need it for.
Yeah, a lot of exciting things to look forward to. Well, I hope you enjoy the event, and thanks so much for making some time for us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.